Hey guys, welcome and welcome back to Maxie's Kitchen. If this is your first time here, my name is Maxlin, and today I want to share with you guys this very delicious recipe. This is my waakye stew recipe. It's so good, it goes well with plain rice even, and waakye of course. If you want to know how to make this, don't go anywhere, stay tuned. We're going to start off with our ingredient list. So on this page you have everything for the proteins, and then on the next page you have everything else you need for the stew itself and all the spices that we'll be using. So the first thing that we're going to do is to blend all the ingredients that I've listed out for the proteins, okay? Onions, ginger, garlic, some fresh herbs. Now this is optional. If you don't have any fresh herbs, don't use it. I used it because I had some in my fridge, okay? Fresh herbs, and then we'll blend with a little bit of water just to help with the blending. And this is going to be the base marinade for all the proteins that we're going to make. I also use 2 green chilies for flavor and for a little bit of heat. If you don't want that, you can absolutely take this out as well. Once you have a smooth blend, we're going to start seasoning our proteins. So in this big pot, which is a pot that I'll be making the stew in, I have my cow feet and my tripe as well. These are the 2 proteins that I'll be steaming or cooking in this pot, okay? So I'm going to add about 3/4 of the marinade into this pot. And then after I add that, I'm going to add in my seasonings. Now the main seasonings that I'll be using are shrimp powder, BADIA complete seasoning. That's my favorite all-purpose seasoning. If you have any all-purpose seasoning brand that you like, feel free to use that. And then I'm also going to add in some dried mixed herbs and then some salt. I'm going to give that a good mix. Now if you don't use shrimp powder, the best alternative for that is any seasoning cube that you like a Maggi cube, an onga cube, just any cubed seasoning that you like. I added a little bit of water. I'm going to let this steam, and then I'm going to add in a lot of water to cook the cow feet. Now cow feet takes about an hour to cook properly because I want it to be soft. You want that too. In my smaller pot, I'm going to add in my goat's meat. I'm only using about half a kg of goat's meat, so this pot was good enough. After putting the goat's meat into the pot, I added the rest of the marinade and I seasoned with the same seasonings that I used for the cow feet and tripe, okay? Now I have some cow skin over here called willy as well. In Ghana we call this willy, but I'm not going to put that in yet because it's been pre-cooked. Okay, so it's already kind of soft, so I wouldn't want that to go in now. I cooked the goat's meat for a while before I added that. Now for the measurements for the seasonings, like the salt, shrimp powder, season to your taste, okay? Someone might like more BADIA seasoning, someone might like less, someone might like more salt, you know, just season to your taste. So make sure that after you season everything, you just taste it slightly to know if you need more salt or, you know, more all-purpose seasoning, okay? So I cooked the proteins for about 5 minutes each before I added a lot of water to each of them so the meat could actually soften. While that was cooking, I took the blender, I didn't rinse it. I was making the the mix of onions, garlic, ginger for my stew. Now the secret to making good waakye stew is to use a lot of onions, okay? So I used about 5 to 6 onions, maybe even 7. I blended that with some water, and then after, because my blender cup was so small, after I blended that, I transferred that into a bowl and then blended all my other aromatics. Like I blended some scotch bonnet peppers, some ginger, garlic, herbs. You guys would see everything, and everything would also be in the ingredient list. So this is the time that you want to blend everything and just pour everything into a bowl. if you don't have aniseed or if you don't have cloves, I use these two, and I also added a bit of peppercorns. If you don't have these three, actually, you don't have to add them, okay? I added them for more flavor. I find that they actually give the stew a lot of flavor. If you don't have these, you can still make this stew and it would still be delicious. I would put the exact amount that you have to use in the ingredient list, so please don't forget to check that. So we're not trying to waste anything, so make sure that you rinse your blender cup with water and then pour it back into the bowl. Okay, we would fry the stew very well, so we'll get rid of all this water when we're making the stew. Another thing that I want to tell you guys, that the cow feet actually it can take like up to an hour or even like an hour and 15 minutes to get really soft. So you will need to keep adding water to the pot of cow feet and tripe. Okay, don't forget that, to keep it going and to soften the meat. So I'm just going to mix this and then set this aside. And then when the meat is done, we'll take everything out. We will only fry the goat's meat and then start the stew. So at this point, I added in some water to the pot of cow feet and tripe. I already spoke about that, but I also added a bit of water to the goat's meat pot. Okay, so after I did that, let's say after 8 minutes, I added in my pre-cooked wele, or my pre-cooked cow skin. Now Nigerians call this pomo as well. I know that Nigerians love this a lot. The reason why I didn't start cooking the goat's meat with it is because it was pre-cooked. Okay, so it was already soft. I just threw this in for about, let's say, 10 minutes, and then after that I took my goat's meat out and then my pomo out, or wele or cow skin out, saved the stock because I used that for the stew, and I also saved the stock for the cow feet and tripe because it had thickened up and it's exactly what I wanted. If it was very, very watered down, I wouldn't have used it. The thickened stock has all of the flavor, it has a lot of the seasonings that we used, so I used it. So I was just taking that out, and then I just rinsed my pot and just wiped it with kitchen tissue. There's no need to wash the main pot because we're going to use that for the stew. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is to add your oil to the pot, and you're going to heat that up on medium to high heat. Now I used about half a cup of oil to start with, and note that for this recipe you might use a lot of oil than you would usually use for any stew recipe, but the aim is to fry everything very well, the tomato paste, the onions. This is very important in this recipe. Okay, so I started with half a cup of oil and then I put my goat's meat in. Now I already told you guys that I didn't have a lot of goat's meat. I only used about half a kg. Actually, this even looks smaller, but you can use more if you like. If you don't want to use goat meat, you can use mutton, you can use lamb, whatever that you like. But once that was golden brown, I just took that out, and then I added in about a teaspoon of madras curry powder, or just regular curry powder, just the curry powder that you use. Now this helps to reduce the acidity of tomatoes in stew, so I fried that in my oil for some time before I went in with all of my sliced onions. I already told you guys that this recipe requires a lot of onions, so guys, don't be afraid. After frying the onions for about 1 minute, I added in one green scotch bonnet pepper. I don't know if this is a scotch bonnet pepper or a habanero pepper. Well, I added in one green chili. Now, this is optional. If you don't want additional heat, maybe don't add it, but I also add it for flavor. Now, I covered it because I wanted to trap all the heat inside, okay, because the pot has a wide surface area. It gets hard for it to fry properly when it's opened, okay, so that's a hack. Now after that fried for let's say 2 minutes, I added in my tomato paste. Now check the ingredient list for the measurements, okay, it's there, but I added in my tomato paste, and this is a crucial step because you want to make sure that you fry it very very well before you proceed to the next step. At this point, you guys can tell that it looks different. We've made a lot of progress with frying the tomato paste, but I still covered it one more time to fry some more because I just didn't want to take any chances with this one, okay? You want to make sure that you fry this for at least 8 minutes, in my opinion. Once that was well fried, I added in the blended mixture of ginger, garlic, a lot of onions, peppercorns, aniseed, cloves, you know, that blended mix that we made. I added it in and then I mixed it very well and covered it again to fry properly. So remember I told you guys that this recipe would use a lot of oil than the amount of oil that you probably use in the regular stew recipe. This is because you want the onions to fry, you want everything to fry very, very well. So I added in a little bit more oil, covered it, and then made it fry for some time, and then we moved on to the next stage. Guys, can you guys see the difference? Okay, you can even see that the color has changed, and this is because it is frying very, very well. This is actually the way some people start making their shito, by frying a lot of onions. Okay, they don't use a lot of tomato paste like this, so they don't get this red color. But that's a sign that we're making progress, like everything is going on well. So at this point, I added 2 cans of chopped tomatoes, making it 800 grams of chopped tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes as well. You can actually blend fresh tomatoes. I just use this for convenience, and I just like the way that it turns out. Now I know that this is chopped, but you still wouldn't see tomato bits at the end. Everything is going to melt inside nicely. So I covered this again and made this fry as well. So after about 15 to 18 minutes, I stirred intermittently actually. I decided to add the stock that we got from cooking the meat to the stew, okay? So I added in the goat meat stock and the one that we put the pomo in as well. That stock, I added in that first. And then I also went in with the stock from the cow feet and the tripe. I poured all of that inside. And I also rinsed the bowl a bit, I think, and then I gave it a good mix and then covered it and let it cook. Now, because this is a huge pot of stew, I was cooking the stew on medium to high heat. It wasn't extremely high, it was more of medium than it was high, but don't cook this on low heat or else it's going to be super slow. After about another 12, 14 minutes, let's say, I came back to taste the stew because we had just added the stock, or I had just added the stock. So that would just let me know, or that made me know the amount of other seasonings to add. I used the same seasonings I've been using throughout. BADIA complete seasoning, shrimp powder. I added in a little bit of curry, salt. Those are the only seasonings I used. Okay, when I mixed that in and I tasted it, I realized that it was a bit sour because of the tomatoes. Now the hack for that is to add in some baking soda. So I just added in about half a teaspoon of baking soda. Actually, you don't need a lot, just a little bit. I added that in, mixed that in, and let that cook again for about, let's say 8 minutes. Came back, tasted it, everything was good. I added in my goat meat, my wile or my cow skin, and then my cow feet and my tripe. I added in all of my proteins, gave that another mix, and then I covered it to cook again for, let's say, 10 minutes. And guys, that's it. That is the stew recipe. That is it. This stew tastes so, so good. Even though it requires a lot of time, patience, it is actually absolutely worth it. Okay, I hope you guys try it. When you're done and you don't want the excess oil, you can just scoop that off. Okay, I forgot to say that. But you need the oil to fry the stew. Okay, don't forget that. Please subscribe, like, comment below, share with a friend, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.